Next, I want to talk about research significance. So far we discussed a research topic, research question, and now then comes the research significance. The significance is really the question of so what? Why should anybody really care about our question? Just a second. If you ask, if you sort of present your topic, you sort of present your question, then the reader would ask, okay, so what? Why should I care about this? And you cannot take it for granted that the researcher, the reader would see your research, the significance of your research focus right away. So you have to make a case for that. And typically, when you present your topic, and this is something that you have to do, like this sort of pretty much the content of your introduction of your thesis. First, you present your topic, then you sort of present your research question and the significance. Why this question is significant. Let's say that I'm interested in U.S. involvement in the Syrian conflict. The question I want to tackle is what explains the level of the U.S. engagement in the Syrian conflict. Now then I have to explain why this is important. If you answer this question, what what will we gain? What is the takeaway, from this research, from the answering this question? So if you understand U.S. engagement in foreign conflict, would that help in terms of our understanding of U.S. foreign policy and also in predicting a United States engagement in future foreign conflict? So I have to make a case why this question is important, why the reader should care about this question. When I make a case for my research, I have to be mindful of two types of significance. One is practical, the other is conceptual significance. And you should be able to distinguish or differentiate practical from conceptual significance. Practical significance is, if we answer the question, your research question, would that help us to solve real world problems? You can say that, but if you answer my question, the result, your analysis will help solve practical problems that concern citizens and politicians or policymakers care about. Let's say that you are studying war. You want to understand sort of conflict. And for many people, conflict is a problem, practical problem. We want to live in a world where there's no conflicts, right? So if your research can help our understanding of what explains conflict, that would also help us to figure out how to stop it, how to sort of reduce the likelihood of it, and how to achieve peace. So one way you can sort of one way you can pitch your research is saying that the answers to your research question, the result of your analysis would provide practical guidance, can provide practical a support in addressing specific practical problems. Or it could be like your research can have a conceptual significance, meaning that let's say your research will enhance, will improve our understanding of your topic in general. Maybe there's a gap in the literature, there's a gap in our understanding of your topic, and you say my research will come in and fill in that gap. And so as such, my research would have a conceptual significance. Maybe we don't know enough about the cause of your topic, and that remains a gap in our understanding of your topic, then so you can sort of say that if we answer my research question and the results of my research would help to fill in the gap of lacking understanding of the cause of my topic. And that's how you make a case for your research, by highlighting its conceptual significance. How to establish conceptual significance? Again, you have to use your imagination, creativity, and you have to sort of market it, sell your research idea to the reader, and convince him or her that your research is significant, and the results of your research, the conclusions of your research, can help solving real-world problems, and also can help in terms of improving our understanding of your topic. That's a significance. Again, significance is significant. When you sort of write your the introduction part of your research, I think that's a right place to talk about the significance and why it is important that we have to do your research. Because that's the point where you have to convince the reader to continue reading your work. The first couple of pages, the reader has to see a value in your research, and the way to make the reader see that is by highlighting the practical and or conceptual significance of your research. All right, another sort of important topic I want to talk about in the broader discussion of topic selection and question development is hypothesis. So when you have research topic, question, you're able to establish the significance of your topic. In most cases, you're expected to have some hypothesis. A hypothesis is sort of a tentative answer to your research question. Tentative is the key here. Tentative meaning that it's not definitive, like meaning that we don't have the definitive answer to your research question. Instead, we have tentative answer. We have some guess, some educated guess as to how to answer your research question. Let's say that my research question is what explains the level of U.S. involvement in the Syrian conflict, and the question is like, do I have some guess, like what might explain it? Like what could be the answer to my research question? Could it be economic interest? Could it be military strategic considerations? Could it be humanitarian concerns? So hypothesis is like some initial sort of educated guess as to how to answer my research question. And typically you would be expected to have some rough ideas in terms of how to answer your research question. Your hypothesis can come from and then at this point you may have some hypotheses, some guesses as to how to answer your research question, and hypothesis may come from different sources. It could come from a clearly identifiable theory, or can come from the existing body of knowledge on the topic. If you have already some exposure to the existing body of knowledge on the topic, maybe because you're writing on a topic that you studied in one of your classes, then you may be in a position to have some educated guess as to how to answer your research question. Or let's say that there's a clear theory out there, clearly identifiable major theory out there that everybody knows, and you can sort of use that theory to create some answers to your research questions. I want to give you some examples. U.S. engagement in the Syrian conflict. Okay, the question is what explains the level of U.S. engagement in the Syrian conflict? And I haven't done the research yet, but I may have some rough hypotheses, some guess as to what might explain it. And it could be international relation theories. For example, realist theory says that foreign policies of countries are determined based on their military and economic interests. So if that's the case, if the realist theory is true, then it can explain why United States engaged in the Syrian conflict. So I need to look at the United States economic and military interests in the Syrian conflict, and how those interests might have motivated. Or different theories of foreign policy which emphasize, for example, bureaucratic politics. Maybe the reason why, the answer to the question of why, what explains the United States engagement in the Syrian conflict has to do with the bureaucratic politics, and the theory of foreign policy in general gives us some ideas like how bureaucratic politics can influence countries' foreign policy. Or there could be I can look at the literature on U.S. foreign policy, some general ideas from the literature on U.S. foreign policy, and use those ideas to hypothesize, to formulate some hypotheses as to what might explain the United States engagement in the Syrian conflict. When we talk about hypothesis, there are three components. The first is the dependent variable. That's the outcome to be explained. What is it that we're trying to understand? What is it we're trying to explain? Independent variable is sort of what we think explains that outcome. Or explanation for the outcome that we're trying to understand or explain. Causal mechanism is the link, the logical link between independent variable and dependent variable. Why do I think that an independent variable explains the dependent variable? So a typical hypothesis would have these three components: dependent variable, independent variable, and a causal mechanism as kind of like a logical connection or link between independent and dependent variable. I know this all sounds very abstract. Let me give some examples, and those examples hopefully will make it more meaningful. Will make the whole discussion more meaningful for you. Let's say, like, an example, U.S. engagement in the Syrian conflict. That's my topic. My research question is what explains it? And let's say I hypothesize that economic interest of the United States is a crucial determinant of the United States engagement in the Syrian conflict. In this case, the dependent variable is the United States engagement in the Syrian conflict. That's what I'm trying to understand, okay? And the independent variable is economic interest that I think could explain why United States choose to engage in the Syrian conflict. So dependent variable is the explanation, independent variable is the explanation, dependent variable is the outcome to be explained or understood. Now the question is, what is the causal mechanism? Why should economic interest lead to more or less engagement on the part of United States in Syrian conflict? And the causal mechanism could be cost-benefit calculation. United States is sort of as a rational player in international politics, international relation, may choose to engage in conflicts where the expected cost of expected benefit of engagement is higher than the expected cost of engagement. And that logical connection is a causal mechanism in this hypothesis that economic interest of the United States is a crucial determinant of the United States engagement in the Syrian conflict. Another example, let's say that in national wealth and democracy, the question is, what is the nature of the relationship between these two? I can hypothesize that the national wealth leads to greater national wealth leads to greater democracy, and a causal explanation could be middle class. As countries become wealthier, there's more education, more urbanization, there's greater social demand for democracy. As a result, there's greater democracy. A democracy is the outcome, and the national wealth in this case is the dependent explanation. Democracy and international conflict. I may be interested in a relationship between these two. In this case, let's say I may ask how democracy influence international conflict. International conflict is a dependent variable. Democracy is independent variable, and I can hypothesize that two democracies do not fight with each other, and the causal mechanism could be, or the logic reason for that could be, if two democracies have shared values and they also have shared institutional restraints. As a result, decision makers cannot easily go to war with each other, and that would be the causal mechanism or explanation for this hypothesis. The hypothesis that two democracies do not fight with each other. As a result, there's lesser likelihood of conflict in joint democracies. Another is the state of the economy and the incumbent president's electoral prospect. The question could be, what is the relationship between these two? And I can hypothesize that overall, if the state of economy is good, then incumbent electoral prospects improve. And the reason for that, citizens they have material interest, they make cost-benefit calculations, and if they are happy with the current state of economy, then they would have reason to vote for the incumbent president. As a result, incumbent presidents electoral prospects would improve. So that's hypothesis, again, with different components and some examples.